Well, good day and welcome once again to the Genius Path. I'm Steve Bonenberger, and we're just so happy you're here. We love the work we get to do. We love to dive deep into people's lives. We love to create this cauldron of healing. I like to call it that because healing creates volcanic activity, doesn't it? And for those of you that are finding and taking the Genius Path, you know about the chapters on volcanic activity, don't you? Because you don't get healing unless you disrupt things. Isn't that true? It's true, isn't it? Now, if you want to find out about us, you go to thegeniuspath.com, thegeniuspath.com. And of course, we pray that you register for the information. It's all free, and we give away a lot of stuff. And we're just so glad that we get to do the work that we feel compelled and called to do. And we're glad that there are so many of you that receive the work with such open arms. And of course, it helps that we've been at this a long time, doesn't it? So we're a trusted voice. We're going to have a really great conversation with a lady named Juliette Dorris-Williams. And I won't tell you much about her. I'll let her introduce herself. But Juliette, we welcome you to the Genius Path and grateful that you said yes to join us. So introduce yourself. Give our folks that are listening and paying attention just a snapshot of who you are and how you came to this day, please.
So, starting at the end, I came to this day because you found me, and so you asked a question, we had a conversation, and here I am. So, hi there. I'm Juliet Dorris-Williams. Among other things, I am a social worker by trade and training. I'm an author of two books now. I'm also a podcast host. I'm a mother, a wife, a Grammy, grandma, and a sister, a friend. And I like to just call myself at the end of the day when all the hats are off, as just a fellow or sister um, walker on the way.
Well, I like On the Way, as you know. In fact, we created the Genius Path. Actually, I didn't create it, as you know. You're an author. You know that you don't create stuff. God sends it into your world,
Hmm.
and some people take the time to pluck it. Juliet has written two books, folks, and the one we're going to be talking about today is called Leaving Church and Finding Faith. Leaving Church and Finding Faith. And as you know, if you follow us, we always ask our listeners, our followers, our viewers to go and find the people's books or albums or movies or whatever the creative work that it is that they have produced and to support them and to buy a copy because nothing makes an author happier, trust me, than when they see that they get 92 cents on a royalty. You don't get much money, but you do the work because God puts messages in your heart. And so, Juliet, we are going to talk about leaving church, finding faith. Now, that's a big, big, big idea.
It's a big
Okay,
idea.
I've been
Hmm.
doing this work 40 plus years, Juliet, and I've seen a lot of transition in my life. I've transitioned a lot in my life. I always tell people that are interested, Juliet, that the work of the ministry I've been doing has taken many different seasons.
Hmm.
And so we're going to talk about some of the seasons of your own life, but let's just talk about this very big idea leaving church, finding faith. I mean, that's a canyon. How did that come to you? What happened? I mean, that's a big, big thought. What took place to bring you to that kind of first, Juliet, the realization that this is something you needed to consider as a human being and as a person of faith?
So, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a big canyon, and as a person of faith, you don't come to these decisions lightly. You and I, I'm a believer that big canyon-like decisions are first met with the problem of pain and discomfort and um, disappointment and in some cases tragedy. And it wasn't that for me necessarily a tragedy. It was traumatic, but it wasn't mean, nobody died. So, um, but it was traumatic. And so yes, I did make the decision to actually leave church. Um, and this time, and that's part of the journey. This time, I left church, but I took God with me. I didn't leave God behind. So because God was something that was very close to me. I have a very strong connection with God, and when I do my work, of course, I use the term God, and I use it in a more inclusive way. But it is for me simply God and Jesus. I'm a Jesus girl, and so a Jesus follower. I don't actually. I very rarely use the term Christian anymore because it's fraught with all sorts of uh, caveats. It's like you have to give a definition of what you mean when you say that you're a Christian. But it seems simpler and gets straight to the point if I use the term Jesus follower, and I am. I am. I don't anticipate not ever being that. I can't even conceive of not even being that. So, um, but I did some years ago. I don't remember the exact year, but I had left the church that I talk about in the book, the church of my heart. I had left that church and wandered about for I don't know, a year or a little longer, um, looking for trying to fit myself into a new gathering, a new congregation, a new group, and was unable to find what I felt was a fit. And then I did. Someone invited me to a small gathering of humans that were um, just in some ways, I want to say weird, but weird in a good way. Weird in that just different sorts of people coming from different sorts of life, different aspects of life, and that felt like home in a way. And I've never been much of what I would call a joiner. So for a non-joiner to find a group of people that they felt that they could join, um, that was nice. It was a good feeling, and they welcomed me, and I as is my pattern. I've never been what they call a pew sitter. So I'm always active. I get active in the business of the church, and so I became active in the business of the church. I was on the ministry team, and I was in the rotation for when I would preach on any given Sunday, and so I was there. I was immersed in that um, gathering of people, and then the pastor, kind of the heart of the church, was called, had a different calling on her life, and moved on, and the church was couldn't hold together after that, and so and that's it. I mean, it just was what it was. It couldn't hold together in a way that she was the center, maybe the life, maybe the attraction um, for it. I don't know. I haven't spent a great deal of time thinking about that, but um, it didn't hold together once she left, and after that, after having been through the many uh, uh, many opportunities, levels of church. Um, I couldn't gear up for it anymore. I didn't have the energy, didn't have the inclination. I just frankly just didn't want to. Didn't want to anymore. And it's I think it is very much just it's just it's like something had run its course for me. I just couldn't gear up for it
And
anymore.
Juliet, what is it that replaced it? So you have these series of events, these
Mhm.
transitions. You find yourself at a place where that you just can't gear up for it. You can't, it doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't feel like the proper kind of garment any longer.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so, what replaces it? What do you, if anything? And I'm not saying that it's necessary for there to be a replacement, but does something come along that replaces it?
I don't know that anything came along to replace it as much as I it's almost like I removed one of the coats that I was already wearing.
Oh, sure.
And so it was an unnecessary layer of what I was already doing in my life. And so one of the things that I do as a social worker, I also run a nonprofit for. I'm an administrative social worker, so I operate. I'm the director of a nonprofit that serves people living with mental health, addiction, and substance abuse and trauma concerns. And I was doing that. I have been doing that. I was doing that. Um, gosh, for the last 14 years. So I've been doing that work, and I think that the the gift of that last community that I um, had that I belonged to, the gift of that to me was for them to really embrace the fullness of who I was. So that was actually a um, wonderful part of that whole time is that they took an interest in the people that I was serving and they wanted to participate. How can we help? What do you need? And how can we support your ministry? And they called it that right from the beginning. I never thought of it as such. I just thought this is good work, it's meaningful work, it's social work, it's my first calling. And yes, I'm doing it because I have um, a servant heart that I'm doing it out of that place. And out of and in the center of that place is God. And so I'm doing it from the God place in me. And so, but for someone to actually say it without me saying it, just acknowledging that the work that I'm doing is ministry, and how can we support you and support your ministry. And so when that when that part of the relationship with that community of people, it was like slipping off one thing and just maybe buttoning up the one coat that I already had on. It's like, okay, this is the work. And um, this is the work, and I can continue doing that without feeling a need to do anything else or surround it or surround myself. It wasn't the work, but I had no reason or no um, inclination to put another label on myself in terms of the work that I was doing.
Let me ask you this. Do you find yourself longing for fellowship like you used to enjoy inside the church? Do you find you're okay living in a life on this separate path? I mean, how do you find yourself now, post the decision to leave church and find faith?
I um, I guess the short answer is no, I don't. And I actually been thinking about that, why I don't, because it seems like, well, with in this age of COVID that we're still experiencing, there's any number of opportunities to engage with communities of faith everywhere around the world, even. And so, because they're all online, or there's some other type of virtual opportunity to engage in a what a church service, as it were. And I don't find myself longing for that at all. And um, I'm actually thinking about that and still exploring it, but no, I don't. Which is
Ju-
different than when I first left the big church. When I first left, I was, but I'm not now.
and Juliet, what have you found in the place that you're in? Because you said you left church and you found faith, and so you indicated that you have this idea of purpose now that has kind of grabbed you. And so, in just a couple of minutes we have left, tell the folks that are listening and paying attention to you, what does it mean to be on purpose now versus the way that you used to see it prior to you writing your book?
I think I saw it as more work versus ministry.
I understand
And
that.
I don't and now that I've, completely changed my way of thinking about that. I don't know why I didn't embrace it before, because I actually do know why I didn't embrace it before, because the church, organized church, organized religion, has a specific thing that they call ministry, and anything that's outside of that is not that. And
It's true.
and once I embraced it fully, it was I'm doing it. I'm serving God and serving people, which is all that I wanted to do anyway, ever.
Her name is Juliet Dorris-Williams. She's written two books. The one we talked about in this segment is called Leaving Church, Finding Faith. Go to Amazon, find it, buy it, invest in this lady that has really taken time to explore the transition that happened in her life. I hope she'll come back. It's always great conversation that we have here at the Genius Path. We bring these kind of folk, don't we, that are just full of faith, full of life, full of exploration. And for those of you that are seeking and finding and taking the Genius Path, welcome. Go to thegeniuspath.com, thegeniuspath.com. Till next time, I'm Steve Bonenberger, and this is The Genius Path. Travel far.